Dave, there's the ground game that Lorella is rightly underlining, and then there's also what is happening on the airwaves. So you have the New York Times reporting that Biden has maintained a nearly 2-to-1 advantage on the airwaves for months. His dominance is most pronounced in 3 critical swing states. Those are Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin, where he spent about $53 million to Trump's $17 million over the past month, largely on ads assailing the president's handling of the virus, as well as the economy and taxes. Talk to me sort of strategically about the difference that makes.
Well, it's not just the in-state buys. Like, Joe Biden is actually buying national cable. That's something that you historically haven't seen in presidential contests, because, like, why would a Democrat advertise to someone in California, for example? But he's doing it both to talk in terms of persuading and getting his message across to key swing state voters with a compelling message to get those persuadable voters, at least those that are left. But also it's a fundraising tactic, right? Like, if he's advertising to people in historically blue states, they're just getting that drumbeat reminder of Joe Biden on television, the sense of urgency of why it's so critical to support him. And so I think that's a fascinating dynamic that you're seeing. And then also, he's also doing advertising in states like Arizona, which have really driven up the costs. I mean, in Maricopa County, which is where Senator Sinema essentially won her Senate race, your advertising in there looks like the Los Angeles media market. It's almost $900 a point. And that's a function of his ad spending. I mean, if you look at Monday Night Football, for example, Joe Biden is spending about $400,000 tomorrow for the Cardinals game. Donald Trump is spending, he's got a very small buy with one ad. He's spending about $36,000. And I think that's a testament to the fact that Joe Biden is serious about winning a historically red state like Arizona, which, by the way, has more electoral college votes than Wisconsin, right? I think it's got 11 electoral college votes to Wisconsin's 10, both of which are critical for the Biden campaign, but it's a reflection of how he's trying to expand the map.
Right, and a critical Senate race to boot there, Dave. I mean, Brittany, nationally, you have Trump trailing, and part of what he is now doing in an effort to court black voters is releasing what he's calling his Platinum Plan, which would include an increase of access to capital in black communities and diversity training for law enforcement. What do you make of that in the final stretch?
Well, beyond the fact that the title alone is frustratingly strange, I recognize that this is part of a long-term strategy that the Trump campaign has been pursuing, that they've been trying to siphon off enough black voters, black male voters in particular, through suppression and voter depression, through misinformation, and actually active votes for him, to try to shore up his reelection campaign. I think it's critically important that we recognize that while there is much more TV spending by the Biden campaign, that over the last few months, they have been outspent on platforms like Facebook. And that is a place where we know misinformation and disinformation continues to run rampant, be targeted towards African-American communities. We saw it happen in 2016, and unfortunately, it was highly successful. And so I think that the sense of urgency that the Biden campaign has right now is absolutely correct. We've seen more of their black surrogates get out there. We've seen more of their attention being shown toward black communities and black men, because at the end of the day, if we are going to do this, we have to have historic levels of turnout that will overwhelm the amount of voter suppression and depression that this administration has been reliant on in the past and right now.
Lorella, as we are on air right now, the president is in Carson City, Nevada. Nevada, of course, a state where there is a sizable Latino electorate. You have Kamala Harris headed here to Florida, another state, a state that is seen as critical to win, a state where the Latino electorate is critical. What does the message need to be from the Biden campaign to convince those voters who are still sitting on the fence?
Alicia, first, I just want to say that I'm glad that people are out there fighting for the Latino vote, because it's so critical that they actually put in the work, that we move from talk to actual commitment and investment and showing up. And so the first thing I will say is that Trump is running on racism and xenophobia, and it's absolutely backfiring. And I have full confidence in voters, in Latino voters, to see what he has done in the last 4 years and remember that we have to show up for our community. And I think that the closing message is, we have the last 4 years to see what has happened to our people, to see what he's done to our community. If you look at the way that COVID has impacted Latinos, the vast majority of children dying from COVID-19 are Hispanic, Black, or Native American. I read that it is noted as a historic decimation of the Latino community across the southern part of the United States. And so that's what we get with 4 more years of Trump. We get that. So we have a choice in this moment to show up and fight for our people. And Biden and Harris have an opportunity to drive a closing argument that centers the economy, immigration, healthcare, education, and ultimately it answers the question about who are we as a country? Who are we fighting for? Can we live in a multiracial America where everyone can thrive? Or are we really an America that seeks to close its doors and that only focuses on a particular part of this country? That's not who we are, and that's ultimately what's on the ballot, Alicia.
Lorella, Brittany, and Dave.